Hey everybody, Nick Koziol here with TST. I am very proud to present a crossover episode between That Sounds Terrific in the 585, That Sounds Terrifying, and the Lunchador Podcast Network co-creator Chris Lindstrom. So without further ado, enjoy the episode.
Well, that music means it's time for another episode of Just Can't Not. Wait a second, it's also episodes of other shows. Guests, why don't you introduce yourselves?
This is Christine Green from That Sounds Terrific in the 585, along with Nick Koziol and Jess DeCotis, who are from That Sounds Terrifying. Welcome to the crossover episode. 3 podcast crossover.
Right. A lot of cheering for that.
Yeah.
It deserves it.
Well, we all get along too.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
In the same room for the first time.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, it's got to be a little bit different because I think most of the time you're recording remote for all the shows, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Zoom.
And it's a very different feel when you're doing a remote interview. I was just producing an episode of Behind the Glass, one of the shows on the Lunchador Network, yesterday. We actually ended up doing over 3 separate recording sessions this time. One was in person, 2 people were remote, different hosts. Usually we're very coordinated. We'll have 6 people in here doing it all at once. And, the Zoom recording, I don't envy it. I love having the control of every aspect of this recording.
Yeah.
Like my goal with the recording is like when I have people leave, if I'm producing a show, by the time they get home, I can have it uploaded and ready for posting by the time they get home.
That's why.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But that's all process. And I have so much control over everything that happens here that I can do it all in pre-production instead of post-editing.
Sure.
But I imagine like doing it all remote requires more of that work. The launch changes and, adding sounds and that stuff changes too, I suppose.
Yeah. Especially with That Sounds Terrifying.
It's all Nick.
That's all Nick. I couldn't speak to it at all. He's our wonder guy. He does
is.
everything, and
Thank you.
I just show up. I don't
Same.
know. Yeah.
I show up and I'm like, I do an introduction and then I
and
flap my
then we
lips.
gab. Yeah.
It is really nice having that person. My co-founder, Matt Austin, is also, he handles a lot of the editing, the higher end editing, like when we're doing the audiobooks for In This Moment or some of the other projects that we're talking about working on. Like if we're going to do more of a journalistic thing, like an edited, like a true crime show or, some sort of news related thing that would require, the attention of editing versus a conversational thing. Like it's great to have that person. Do you like being that person, Nick?
I mean, I do if it was my only job, but it gets tough when it's not, right?
Same.
So, and then, with That Sounds Terrific in the 585, it's pretty simple. You clip the beginning and you clip the end, and it's like that early chatter that you have. And a lot of times we do refer back to it, like with our guests and stuff.
Sure.
But with That Sounds Terrifying, especially when we're telling the stories, we want to have like background music, and then we want to try to like maybe put some sound effects in there. Although Jess does really good sound effects on her own, so sometimes I don't even need to put them in there. I'm like, yes, she made the sound. That's amazing.
Hold on,
Don't need to
wait.
add anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that. Like
It was
Yeah.
a dog and stormy night.
Did someone make a pig sound on the last one about the sow? I can't remember.
I didn't make that, but
No.
he put that in.
we found that. So like free, like I forget what it's like, freeaudiosound.com or something like that. A couple of the shows, like we have, like I've had my son, like actually, when he was laughing, I had his laughter in there. I've had,
Well, you have a pig.
yeah.
You have a pig. You could have gone out there and just been like, "Come here, pig."
Some of the
Poke that pig.
some of the squealing, well, most of the squealing was because I don't like to agitate him, but like the grunting was him, and then there was some like really agitated, like squealing. So we
Doesn't want to agitate.
They do they have happy grunts.
Yes.
And people
Poor pig.
misunderstand the grunts,
Yeah.
but they got happy grunts.
and they have like they call it popcorning. It's especially prevalent in guinea pigs, like where they like pop up and they're like really excited and they like hop around. It's called popcorning, but
cute.
Pudge will do that too. And actually, since the winter's been happening, he hasn't been outside too much. So not to
Wait.
get on a total tangent, But he popcorned the other day when he got to go outside. He was so excited because they can't really jump,
Buddy.
but they like kind of
Yeah.
hop.
Yeah.
Wait, can we rewind?
Oh,
Sure.
please.
No, like I mean about this pig thing.
Mhm.
So guinea pigs and pigs are related.
Oh, I don't know if they're like related, but like I know like when you think about we've had guinea pigs and
I
we've
can't
had
believe
true
I said
pigs. So like the guinea pigs will like do something called popcorning, where they kind of like do this like hop thing where they kind of, I don't know.
They get excited.
I'm like a Trekkie, so I think of the Tribbles, like the little shaking kind of a thing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But I never knew pigs did it, like actual pigs, until we had Pudge.
So they're closer related to capybaras. So,
yeah, I would love one of those.
They're
too.
big rodents. So
Okay.
guinea pigs are rodents like capybaras.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Wait, pigs and guinea pig. It was very confusing.
I mean, speaking of cute animal
actually not
things, I love like when I see the videos of capybaras where there's pelicans trying to chomp on them, and they're just sitting there, just looking placidly or like closing their eyes,
They
like
don't
they're getting
care.
massaged.
Yeah.
Because the pelicans can't eat a capybara; they're just chomping on them.
Are the capybaras the ones that throw their young, like if they're threatened, they throw the baby?
So that was lemmings,
Oh, okay.
or where they were jumping off of cliffs.
No.
Or are you thinking
if
of?
they're threatened? It's in the book. Actually, this is funny. I was just talking about this with my hairdresser today, and it was you're not a bad mom. There's worse moms than you. It's a book.
It could be
talks
possums
about-
because possums hang on to the back.
Yeah.
I don't think,
But
it's
they're
possums.
pretty
I
pretty
thought it was like those
durable.
really cute. Because capybaras are very
Yeah.
cute, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's one of those very cute animals,
I could
and
see
like
that.
it's holding the baby, and then if like something is coming at it, throws the baby at it and runs away.
Yeah.
It's like that's a bad mom.
By the way, Jess, hair
That's
looks
hilarious.
great.
Oh, thank you.
It does
thank you,
look
thank you
great.
very much.
And
yeah, I did not shave
I
it.
know that I'm pretty sure the capybaras are also the ones that like can swim with alligators or crocodiles. And they don't attack them. It's like one of the only animals. I don't understand why that would
Yeah.
happen. Right?
I think it's
So
vibes.
chill. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say they're too chill. to
It's just
bother.
vibes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll just have to remember that if I'm ever in like
Just
alligator infested water.
vibes.
It's quokkas or quokkas.
Oh, quokkas, yeah.
Quokkas.
Oh.
And some other marsupials
Mm.
will loosen the pouch muscles, causing their young to fall out, which can serve as a distraction for predators and allow the mom to run away.
Run away.
Sounds like we're blaming Australians again. So
Oh my gosh.
It's like Monty Python. Run away. Run away.
So I mean, we're obviously having a good time. This
Yeah.
is, the benefit of having people that do recordings is we just have a good time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's talk about the shows a little bit. So
yeah.
let's go into the background of, what's good in the 585. Let's talk about that first, because that's, I think how I had heard about these shows before, but that's kind of where I started getting more in tune with what was going on with all the shows. So talk a little bit about that and how this partnership came to play.
Sure. Well, maybe I'll
Well,
start with
you
the
start.
history a little
Yeah.
bit, and then we'll kind of get to where the partnerships kind of happen. So, like way back in like COVID days, a good friend of mine said, hey Nick, you have to start like a movement, right? I was out of the job, I was looking for something, and I'm like, I need to kind of get in front of people. So that's kind of how That Sounds Terrific was born. Like I'm going to feature people, especially nonprofits at the time, that are doing like terrific things in their community, and like let's just get it out there so that I can also get in front of these people and then maybe get offered a job, right? And then we kind of flash forward a little bit after a lot of like interviews and starting off, and I shared this with you off the air, Chris, like, I used to like read off of a piece of paper like questions like, Bernadette, what is your favorite color? And then like stare and wait, and it was very boring. And in fact, I even redid our first episode. But then I realized that, flash forward a couple seasons, I'm like, we started That Sounds Terrifying, and I'm like, I love the dynamic between Jess and I having a co-host, and I really wanted to concentrate more on my community. Mm-hmm. I was jumping from like thing to thing all across the world, even with That Sounds Terrific, and I'm like, you know what? I really need to start something where we're concentrating on the terrific things that are happening here in the 585. And that's kind of like where the second rendition of That Sounds Terrific happened. But I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. So, but Why don't I have you talk a little bit, Christine, about why 585?
Why 585? Well, I don't remember what issue it was, but it was last year. Sarah Killip, who is one of our really great writers, wrote a story and did photos about That Sounds Terrifying and That Sounds Terrific. And so we had, well, I'll rewind even further. I first met you at the Union Tavern.
Yeah, that's right.
And we
Shout out to Kelly Bush, new member of the Lunchador Podcast Network.
really
With Bossy ROC.
Oh, that's
nice.
amazing.
So Kelly
She's
and Kelly
great.
joined up, so now they're working with us as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Kelly and Kelly are great.
Yeah, they're really cool people.
Yeah, they're very cool. So we sat at this table together, and it was a spooky meeting, kind of, right? Because
Yeah.
you were
It's a
hosting
launch
it.
of That Sounds Terrifying, really, right?
Yeah, you gave me a little
Yeah,
card.
it was the launch.
So then we decided to write the story. This sounds really interesting. It's really good. And then I think you just said, let's get lunch one day. I want to talk to you about something. And you said, what about, would you be interested in co-hosting? I think you just said like an episode or two and see if you like it. And of course I talk so much and all the time. And I was like, sure. All I have to do is get on Zoom and have a conversation with people. And so that's how we kind of got started. And so while we were talking earlier about, again, off air, about how Nick is really the powerhouse behind all the technical, everything technical, from the Zoom meeting to the recording to the audio to everything. Where I come in is, one, my charming personality and gift of gab, but also like I do the scheduling and I write the blog posts and I try and help.
You do help very
I do
much
help.
so.
I do help.
That part is, as somebody who is certainly more likely to do just the work. Like, I love the process of setting up. I love the process of planning. The stuff I don't like is reaching out to people. I love when I have them in the room, and I don't mind reaching out, but it's the thing I fail at the most, is reaching out to people to, get them over, because the answer is going to be yes. Like, I know lots of these
Yeah.
people, and I look at the list of people I haven't had over like 10 plus years, and I'm like, God, I really suck at that side of this sometimes. Like, I've known them for a decade
Yeah.
and I hadn't had them over. So it's great to have that, split of, hey, I know what I'm good at.
Well,
Yeah.
and neither you or Jess give yourselves enough credit. Like, the content is so important too, and like I wouldn't have half the content in some situations. Jess is carrying the show. You're carrying the show with questions. At so 3/4 of the content. So that's very helpful to
Means
me
we talk
as
a lot.
creator.
We talk a lot.
I wasn't gonna label it that way, but
Yeah. I
Well-
also jump from topic to topic.
Yeah. Well,
I
and then
digress.
also, the partnership with, working with Christine, but also, having that funnel and, soft tie to 585 magazine as well does aid that funnel of people being available.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And also, is nice to have that little accent to what the magazine's doing.
Yeah, no, I thank you for bringing that up. That is really important to me. I feel like we're in this multimedia world, right? Everyone wants to see, hear, touch, read. Nothing is just, there's no one way to get a message across. So I think this kind of crossing over between audio and socials and the magazine will help, not just in terms of numbers driving people to all these different ones, but reinforce the community we're trying to highlight. Like, oh, you read the magazine, maybe you're in the magazine and you're on the show, and then suddenly you have a connection, and then suddenly you have a friend, and then you have a business associate, and then you have another networking opportunity. And it sounds so cheeseball and cliche, but it is community creation, and it's important. That's how life is fun. We can say all these things about, again, business and everything, but like, we just want to be connected to people and have a good time.
Well, and it also is another way to learn. So like when you think about the magazine, not everyone reads a magazine, not everyone gets
Yes.
it. Like, so you get the audio, you get the video, and like you get to hear a little bit more in a different angle, off the
Yes.
air. Again, Chris, we were talking about like,
Yeah.
some people are writers and some people are just like to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like to just hear the conversation while they're driving to work, like an hour away,
Yeah.
like me. And that definitely is something that it's just another avenue for us to reach people and tell people about what's going on.
Exactly.
I think there's something to be said too with not being shy about trying to accomplish something.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy. I know I find it very easy to feel like I'm burdening somebody to create the thing. And, it's helped to internalize that, hey, I'm trying to do something good. I'm trying to benefit what's going on, and not shy about it, but not feeling, like trying puts you out there in a way where you can get attacked or get, oh, I didn't quite accomplish what I said I was wanting to accomplish. Not shying away from the challenge.
It's very vulnerable to do
Yeah.
all the things we do, right? And in our quote unquote, in our day jobs and our other stuff, all of us, I think, have these kind of challenges. And then we come together and to do writing or podcasting or music or whatever we do. And it's very vulnerable because there are lots of critical, terrible people, but it's very vulnerable. It can be really scary, but once you start to develop that habit, and I think you're right, is never forgetting at the end what we're trying to do. I mean, we're not trying to make a bunch of money. We're not trying to become the most famous podcasters who end up, at some podcasting award in Hollywood or something. We're trying to like make friends with people and highlight the coolest stuff that's happening. And there's value in that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, but all that other stuff would be nice.
Yeah. I mean,
but Nick is trying to get obviously so rich.
That's all. Yeah, completely rich.
We're going to be so rich in this podcast.
Totally.
But I think it's also true for the That Sounds Terrifying. Like it's a different story you're telling, but you're creating community. You're having fun. We're all little kids who want stories told to us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think all four of us are doing that, I hope. And I always feel really invigorated after a podcast. Same. Even like right before, I'm like, oh my God, I got to do the podcast. I got to comb my hair. And like, you get all kind of worked up like, oh, I got so many things to do. And then you're like, that was so awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is you work it up in your head. As soon as I sit down, like I can be exhausted after a long day at the day job. And as soon as I sit down, it just feels right, and my day ends up feeling more complete. And it's especially when you get a great guest, right? I mean, I remember listening to one of the early episodes of the new partnership, and I think it was the local comics writer.
Oh, Jackie Davis from Underpants and Overbites.
And somebody who I've been reading for years, and before I knew she was in Rochester.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was, such a great conversation with somebody who in town, almost nobody knows her. They know the work, and they also don't know it's in Rochester.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people like that around where this exploration of people doing great things is almost just a completely deep well where you can never know enough. I always use the example of, one of the guys, his stuff sells in Wegmans all the time, like Delirious, right? You see his T-shirts.
Oh, yeah. Every time I go there.
So Delirious, you see all the time. He has a shop at the public market. You see his stuff on power boxes all around town. You're like, oh yeah, Delirious. We know who that is. Except for nobody knows Mike. Nobody knows Mike. He is a wildly private person. Like everybody knows Delirious. Nobody knows Mike.
Right.
Isn't that fascinating?
He is so non-visible. And I love that we have all those different angles here in town where you get the people who are super visible and I'm so Rochester and I love them. Like Sean Dunwity is a great example.
Yeah, he's great.
Or Magnus, part of the network as well. Magnus is such a visible artist in Rochester.
Yep.
If you know anything about the art scene, you know those guys. You have to. And then there's the people who are also super present, but nobody knows them except for their circle.
Well,
And it's pretty cool.
And it's interesting that you pulled in Jackie to the conversation because like she has a certain medium that she's in, and like everyone laughs at, like it's basically a journal, a diary of her life, and she's just so incredibly funny on the show, and you kind of hear some of the cool behind the scenes kind of things that are going on in her life and how she comes up with her craft and everything, and it's very interesting. And then you go over to like the other, I call the yin and yang of the shows. So it's like, that sounds terrific, and then there's that sounds terrifying, and it's a lot of times the things you don't want to talk about or discuss or whatever. And I mean, Jess, why don't you tell us a little bit about how like
I love
we
that
came
sounds
to
terrifying.
be? Yeah.
How we came to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's horrible to do a podcast while I have like a thing going on, so I
Oh
apologize.
no, it's perfect for the tone of the show.
I have
You need more whiskey and you need more colds.
I do need more whiskey.
This is
yeah.
hey, we're
then we,
things are scary.
Like Wolfman Jack. Does anyone listening remember Wolfman Jack?
Of
Anyway,
course.
sorry. Okay.
I saw him in the documentary Weird about Weird Al,
Oh, well, there you go.
played by Jack Black in that one.
There you go. Love
feel
Jack.
It's very
if
good.
I saw it,
All right,
I would
sorry,
know
Jess.
it. No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah. So I mean that sounds terrifying. Really, just came to be because of Nick. We were at dinner. We talked about it in the podcast too. How we came to be. Where I have. It's so weird to me to say this out loud, but I have abilities of like mediumship and empathic abilities.
Not Liam Neeson abilities.
No.
A special set of
I
skills.
do have a special set of skills as
Okay.
well, but I'm not going to talk about that on this podcast. We can talk about that at a different time.
Ooh, that's going to be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I will find you.
Yeah, it is my favorite genre of movie, by the way. Is somebody who was the best. They're out due to extraordinary circumstances. They're brought back in, and they have to kill everybody. That's my favorite genre of movies.
That'd be a bad part in my show. Jess is back, and now she has to kill everybody.
No, I speak to dead people, or I can. I don't do it all the time. It will just kind of happen. I don't make money off of that. That is not a business I do. Don't call me asking for me to talk to your grandma. I will not do it. I do it for special circumstances. And I had this experience that particular day that I was going to, was it just like happy hour or dinner with you and our friend Ashley?
Yeah, it was before improv.
Yeah, we went before improv. So Nick and I are both in improv. And at Comedy at the Carlson. So shameless plug.
Nice.
So we had gone to dinner, and I had this experience where the woman who, this sounds weird. So she cleans my house, and she was up in my bathroom, and the lights were flickering, and she was like, "This is so weird. The lights have been flickering all day. I don't know what's happening. I feel like someone's around me." And then all of a sudden, I had this experience that I've really never had before, where I've explored my mediumship abilities before. I've talked to the other side. But it wasn't like this. All of a sudden, I just got like these downloads of these people, and I saw these people in. It's hard to explain it other than like it looked like they were in. You know when you look at the sun and you look away, like the green that you see, it looked like that. And I could like physically kind of see that. And it looked like a Rolodex of people that were all with her. And there were people with her, and they all had messages, and they were very personal messages. And she basically was like, oh my God. And I'll just like say that there was one guy that was in particular just saying that he was okay. And I kept seeing like, this guy, and he kept saying blue plaid, I'm wearing my blue plaid or something like that. And I was like, he's a bigger guy, he looks like this. I got his whole description down. He looks like he's in a blue plaid shirt. He just keeps talking about blue plaid. She goes, oh my God, I don't know who that is. And she was like, wait. And she immediately, all of a sudden, like knew who that was, looked him up on Facebook and said, this was him. It looked exactly like him. And he was wearing blue plaid in almost every single picture of him, like different blue plaid shirts. It's all he wore was blue plaid.
Whoa.
And so that was like amazing to me because I had this validation, and I was like, I'm not I mean, maybe I am crazy, but I'm not that crazy. I have this validation that I was right. So I was so excited to tell my friends, like, and I've gotten to the point where I don't care if you think I'm crazy because I know what I experience, right?
Sure.
So I told them the story and I was like, this happened. And I think I said, like, I don't care if you believe me or not. Like, this happened, just happened. And so Nick, I guess that touched a nerve. So Nick and I ended up talking the rest of that dinner, and Ashley was just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about.
We're talking about like lights turning on because
Ghosts.
you're walking under them and like all sorts of different experiences back and forth. And like, we were pretty sure that we scared the heck out of Ashley.
Yeah, but she was fine. She
was
really
fine.
Was.
She
was
talked
really
to us again. It was
yeah,
great.
she did. But yeah, I mean, I guess I've always had that interest in paranormal because I've always had experiences since I was a kid. So I was trying to validate what I was experiencing. Like, am I crazy? Should I go to a doctor, or am I for real? And you know, I'm happy to say that the doctor said I'm fine, and
We need a second opinion.
yeah, and so that was like the start of it. I just and Nick called me like a week later, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, that would be amazing. Let's do that."
See, I find that very interesting because as somebody who's a distinct unbeliever in everything, you know, I think where my struggle is often is, you know, one, not to an individual, is provability, right? Is the provability. I think my biggest concern, as with many things that are belief-based, is people who are taking advantage of others.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which is why, like, my wife and I have really enjoyed watching some of the old videos of the amazing Randy. James Randi, he was a, you know, an illusionist kind of guy. You know, he's a magician, and was very honest about, hey, I am tricking you. This is, you know, I'm not performing magic.
Yeah.
I am performing something that'll make you interested and excited.
It's an illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was always very honest about that. And the stuff that he dedicated the rest of his career to was not disproving, but for people who were, you know, taking advantage of people and taking lots of their money and doing these things. He basically said, I have a running $100,000 prize. If you can scientifically prove what is happening, I will give you $100,000. And he did that for years on TV and on talk shows and other things. And I always found the thing fascinating. It's not that, for me, it's the same as almost anything else. It's the same as religion to me and other things, is if it makes you, hey, your experience is your experiences. I can't doubt that. And if it makes you a better person and, hey, you can help somebody else and it's gone well, I'm all for it. As long as it's not a deleterious thing for others.
Right.
And that's my focus.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned that, is why I felt comfortable bringing it up, is like, hey, I'm not trying to take advantage of somebody. I'm not trying to leverage their money, but that's where a lot of that stuff goes.
Right.
Whether or not, you know, this is where you get into real charlatanism, where people who are purely doing, you know, the cold reading tricks and everything
Sure.
else and taking advantage of people who are desperate. And that's the stuff that always bugs me, because
Same.
Yeah.
and I think that's ethics is first, regardless of anything else.
Yeah. And that's, you know, ethics should be first in all points, right? And also, I'm a realtor, so ethics are first, right?
Absolutely.
Because realtors don't have a good, there's not a high opinion of us, you know.
Been a lot of interesting things. Not that I want to take the rest of the hour and talk about all the realtor issues over the last couple of years, but it's been fascinating to read about.
Yeah, I've been through it. I'm a director on the board. Like I
Deeply understand.
I'm in there, yeah. And so that means that my ethics have to be on par, but also just I believe in being a good human. You know?
Yeah. And you are.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I strive for that. You know, But in general, yeah, as far as like my, I guess I don't know what to call it, spiritual practice, because I'm
Sure.
not religious. I was born and raised very religious, and I got out of that in college when I started to have my eyes opened in a different way.
Mm.
And so but overall, I don't do it for money. I don't do it for like clout. If somebody's there and they need help, I'm going to do it, and
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. And I do have clients that in real estate that will be like, is this house haunted? And I will sit there and I'll focus on that house, and I will let them know what I feel. If I feel something, yeah. If I don't, I don't, and I guess in a lot of ways that could work against me in real estate, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this house is haunted. You do not want it, like,
Yeah.
and I've had that conversation with people. So, I don't bring it up in my day job unless somebody like brings it up.
Sure.
But yeah, as far as like That Sounds Terrifying, I've always loved, like I said, spooky stories, and I loved that Nick loved spooky stories, and I listen to podcasts like that as well, and I thought, God, how fun would it be to do something similar, right? And it could be just like local, but we've talked to people internationally, and it's just so cool.
Yeah.
And we had Christine on as well.
Oh, it was so fun.
It was fun.
I would do it anytime you guys want me back or something, because it's just fun. I love a spooky story. I love having spooky experience. Well, I shouldn't say that. You say, I love having spooky experience. Then you have an
now
experience.
Invited it into your life.
I got protections. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm not, I think if you listen to our first story on the podcast where we talk about our own experiences, that experience that I had where I saw what looked like a little boy in my own bedroom really made me feel like, before I just wouldn't talk about it as much, right? I like spooky things, whatever. I like ghost shows, but I wouldn't say like, I didn't want people to think I was weird. I'm actually pretty like, I don't know.
Yeah, we still struggle with that now. Like sometimes we'll talk about, like, should we put this on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
should we talk about this? I have cut things out, like saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't talk about, and we probably shouldn't, but it's just like we're still learning that comfort level. Right?
Yeah, but yeah, I just there's a line, yes, and I'm very professional, and I do all these things. I'm in a band. I do improv. And I don't really put it out there. But after that experience, where I saw that ghost boy, I was like, I don't care who knows. I know what I saw. I know I was wide awake. I know, and I was like, that was kind of a launching point for me to say, like, I do not care what people think. If this comes up in conversation, I'm telling it.
Well, I think what we're going to do is, I don't care what people think either. We're going to go commune with the ghost boy, and we're going to be right back. All right, we're back with the second half of our conversation. We're going to talk more. That sounds terrifying. And then we're also going to have the tables turn, and everybody's going to talk to me about different stuff. And I was just mentioning in the break that sometimes I love the challenge of not knowing the questions or what people are going to talk about during a podcast. I know it can be scary sometimes if you don't know what's coming up or you don't know too much about them.
Sure.
I love sitting in the producer's seat sometimes, and even as the host, I love the challenge of not knowing what's going to come out of somebody's mouth and then pivoting and talking about something like, I didn't know I was going to bring up the amazing Randy today, but like, it's also, I love, that wide range of knowledge that can be so fun to jump around in these kind of conversations is such a delight.
And that to me is the crux of lifestyle journalism. And it's something I strive to teach. I have students, interns coming is, yes, you can go into an interview with someone in arts or lifestyle. I mean, obviously we're not doing breaking news or politics with your list of questions, but I always encourage a flow of conversation, because you're never going to know what what your subject is going to say, have a conversation, build off of what people are talking about. And sometimes it's a learned skill for people. I, as you listeners have probably figured out over the last half hour, can talk all the time about anything, but some people it's really hard. But I think it's an important skill in podcasting, in writing, in community building, is being able to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And both our shows, like both That Sounds Terrifying and That Sounds Terrific, I like having those unexpected conversations. I think in That Sounds Terrifying, we do a lot more, I guess, research around having a story prepared and whatnot. But I think the fun of that show actually comes from the discussion afterwards, where Jess and I are kind of going into like, oh, well, the heck was that guy thinking?
Yeah.
Or like whatever, like, or like how outrageous that story really was. And like, that could never happen.
Or
and this guy's like making this up kind of,
It's like, watching a horror movie. Like I remember watching a movie a year or so ago. I think it was called Barbarian, just a modern series of movies. And like, basically they keep on going down deeper into this basement. Like, I don't know what's down there. I'm like, don't go in the pit. Don't go in the pit.
Yeah.
If you keep going down in the pit, something bad's going to happen. If there's a pit in your basement and there's stairs to an unknown spot, don't go in the pit.
I don't know. I think I'm going.
You know what? I often end up in places.
in the pit.
Where in the pit. I'm like I got last week.
Shout out to the U of R.
I was in. I'm dying to talk about this. If you guys want a short story.
Oh,
Does everyone
please.
want a short story?
That's a short story.
I am in New Orleans, and this was going into the pit. So I love going to cemeteries. I mean, I'm obsessed with cemeteries, as you two know, because I was on the podcast talking about my cemetery obsession. So I'm in New Orleans. We go to Metairie Cemetery, where Anne Rice is buried, and we couldn't find her mausoleum, so we go into the big mausoleum, which is called All Saints Mausoleum. It's one with 9,000 people or whatever. And I didn't get lost, but almost, like, I got kind of separated from my friend. No one was in there, and I kept turning corners and coming to a wall, and the smell in there kept getting worse and worse and more upsetting. And then when I finally found my friend, and again, it was like, I felt like if an audience was watching me, they'd be like, no, go left, because I was getting really weirdly panicked because the smell was so awful. And then my friend was like, I don't smell anything. I'm like, oh, it's dead. I smell death in here. It is not okay. And I can still smell it in my head. So, but I'm the one, I go in the pit. I'll be yelling, don't go. And I'm like, I was in the pit. I kept going. It was bad. There's my story.
We needed that in the last episode, Josh. It hasn't aired yet, but we talked about that sound.
I'm looking up. Hold on. There's something. God, it's all the clairs. There's like I think 5 clairs. Psychic smell. Claire.
See, that sounds like a very 90s band. 5 Clairs.
I know. I was like, the 5 Claires. Who are 5 Claires?
Claire salience. Claire salience is when you have the gift of smell, and like you can smell, like if grandma's perfume was roses, you can smell roses.
That's me.
Yeah, so it's actually more rare than like clairvoyance. You can have more than one Claire, but I have clairvoyance. I have clairaudience, which means I can hear.
Yeah,
and I can see. And so Claire salience is the gift of smell.
I definitely have that weird
sounds
smell
like you
thing.
have that, and taste. You can, like, if some people can taste.
I can
find
see
that interesting about the smell thing, because the smell is like what brings memories back to a
Yeah,
lot
it
of
does,
people.
yeah.
the
For
most
sure.
and stuff like that.
Oh, I
So,
write about
that being the
smell.
rarest is kind of funny to me. And then
And
of course,
some people, it's very visceral, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when they
Sure.
like, it's like when I talk about, my wife's better at everything that I am naturally. Like, she's a naturally better taster than I am. She's naturally a better writer. She's a naturally better talker than I am. I've practiced a lot more.
You love her. That's such a nice thing.
She's so talented, but it's one of those, like, she's naturally better at that stuff, but then you practice and you do this. But I also love sitting down to taste with her, because she'll bring out a tasting note like, oh, this reminds me of like the summer of 1999 when I was swimming in this pool. I'm like, great, that's really specific, and I love that it's a fun experience for you. But I like isolating. I'm an analytical person when it comes to that. But I also love that all these things can be experiential.
Yeah.
Right.
And that you have to like what you like. You have to experience what you experience. What I was kind of wondering before we pivot on to me talking a lot more is, how do you decide what topics you want to talk about on a show like that? Because the world of terrifying is vast and differs for every person. Like, how do you decide on what you want to talk about?
Do you want to talk about it, Nick? I feel like I've just been talking.
No, I mean, I think you just talked about it. It's sort of random. Like, sometimes we do have a plan and we're like, we're going to talk about this. And then like the last episode that, hasn't aired yet, but it will air before this one does. Like, I'm like, oh, I found a Civil War story again. And I'm like, this is awesome. So it can be very random, or it could be what we're feeling. It could be based on, like, one time I think we selected a topic because we were at improv and we had experience about the glass, right?
Oh, the glass. Yeah.
That just suddenly like fell or
it lifted up and flew at Comedy at the Girls.
Wait, you both saw this?
So the whole group saw this. Yeah.
The power of radio.
Yeah.
And so we just said, like, okay, Fred. Like, we just named the ghost Fred. I don't even know what it was, but we all saw it. It was just a glass. And like, I went over there because I was like, I thought it might be like, oh, it was just, when it's like too wet, and then the glass just floats on it. It wasn't like that. It was literally dry glass, up, throw. Like, all of us saw it. And it was just so weird. Like, all the people facing, because I think we were in a circle, but all the people, like, we were all just like, what the hell just happened? And it was like, it wasn't right off the table. It was like feet from the table.
It was not a fall.
No.
And again, sort of to kind of answer your question even more, Chris, sometimes we have someone like you or another guest comes on, or someone that encounters, and like, we got to have them on the show and they can appear immediately.
Yeah,
so
that's super fun. Like my drummer in the band I'm in, he was like, I'm totally into that, and he had great stories. My favorite thing that happens with our podcast is when we're just both like, oh, we gotta like pick stories, and our stories, we don't talk about what the subject is, but they line up. They're like similar in some way. Like the other day, the one that isn't released yet, we were both talking about trees.
Yep.
It was weird, but that's happened more than
closets. It's
more than once.
It's crazy that it happens. So, but Chris, we do want to talk about you.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to talk about Loraxes? I thought we were talking about who's speaking for the trees.
The ghosts are speaking for the trees.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but I mean, I guess we got connected at the 585 release party. Right, you came up to our table and we were excited because, like, hey, people are coming up to our table. But I guess maybe we'll just start off with about us a little bit more. But like, what made you interested in reaching out to us?
Well, I think for somebody that's ended up doing this for longer than, like, not as consistent as I would like to be, but I looked back. I think my first episode was in 2013.
Wow.
So I remember slapping a phone on a table at the commissary for the Brick and Motor and Macarolin food trucks.
Oh, wow.
Which was directly across the street from where I used to work on Emerson Street. Like, my first one, I slapped it on a table and talked to Paul Vroman over at his food truck depot. But as somebody who's done it for a long time and up and down, more successful, less successful, posting more, posting less. I've found myself over the last few years kind of ramping up and figuring out, what do I want to do with this? And I love seeing people try. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's podcasting or magazines or writing, but people who are honestly trying to do something that they care about, I just want to talk to them, because that's where I've found myself, is doing things just because I think it's a good idea. And I just love seeing other people trying, and I've mentally passed the point of caring about competition. Yeah. Like, I want to do something great. And if people want to listen to my version of great, that's awesome. Hey, if they want to listen to your version, that's also great. There's no competition. If it's great, it's great.
Right.
And I think we just need more good things going on. Amen. And more people trying to drive positivity. Mm-hmm. And positivity can be many different flavors, right? It can be being seen for, hey, this is my side of the world. This is how I understand the world. they're being seen by the scary stories just as much as they're seen by the people who are creating great art or writing or teaching classes, on your show. And I think that's why I love going up and talking to people. If they're doing something good, I just want to know more. I'm greedy. I just want to learn.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, what's cool about that, and what I've learned so much about just over the years, especially being in real estate, is that people are so dynamic. You can have that same artist, like Magnus artist, and then I believe he does Mind of Magnus as well. I was on his podcast.
It's great.
Doing my marketing stuff. So, I mean, like, people are so interesting, they're not just one flavor. You have somebody and they do so much, and that is so cool to just learn. And you could ask that same person about their whatever it is they're doing, their art, and then you could have that same person back on the podcast to talk about their podcast or their whatever. I think that's so neat. Like,
yeah, or just the trying. Like you were talking about trying, and all these shows are talking about trying to get the word out there above blank, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I love about your network. And I'd love to hear more about that too. But like, you're getting so much information out on so many different topics, and you're connecting people at a pretty vast length, both on the one side of the mic and then the other side, the speaker.
Yeah. I think when I take a step back and look at the journey to where I am now, a lot of the journey starts with a lot of desperation and a lot of wanting to be connected to things and not having something else, right? When I was younger, I didn't have a thing, right? I had a friend group. They were great people, but they weren't, I wasn't the core part of the circle. I was on the periphery, and they were very welcoming and good people. But I wasn't the core of the friend group. I was desperate to find, a partner in life. I was desperate to find something that I cared about hard. I'd watch sports and stuff and be, do all that. But I didn't have that thing that made me excited to be part of something. And I remember going up, I was dating my wife. We were in an apartment, and she was, drawing. She was drawing for a children's book that she was commissioned to do. And I went up, and I just remember I was so despondent that I just didn't have that thing that she had. And it was, that desire for something. And then I just remembered that I had traveled and wrote about food when I was on the road for 2 months in scenic Fort Wayne, Indiana. But I was so alone out there that I just wanted to find places that were comforting. So I went to places, and before Yelp became much more polluted with everything else, I remember writing just because I just felt so present when I went to those places. And I started writing, and then I started writing more, and I picked it up after that, and then started writing on a blog when blogs mattered.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had one of those back in the day.
Yeah.
You have one of those now.
Yeah. So
yeah, I guess I did.
yeah. So like when indie blogs were like
Yeah.
a
No, I know what
thing,
you're talking about.
and
Oh,
it
yeah.
was, I started writing, I got picked up to write restaurant reviews by city because I was doing full-length restaurant reviews just on my own. I was doing
Nice.
full-length detailed reviews just because I felt like
Yeah.
I needed to do it. And then, over time you start getting more integrated and you find the things that you care about more. And what I found over time is that doing the work and participating in the place that I'm in, giving to Rochester has given me so much more back than I put into it. Feeling like you're a part, like you're trying to highlight things. Like I could write about fine dining all day if I wanted to, but the stuff that made me feel best was writing about the small minority-owned restaurants of Rochester.
Yeah.
And that was the stuff that drove me to want to do the next one. And yeah, it was one for them, one for me, right? Because people want to read about the fine dining spots. They want to read that stuff. But I wanted to write about, El Pilon Criollo, or, write about a Jamaican spot, or write about, this specific place that's doing this specific thing. So all that to be said, everything I do now is focused on helping others get that same feeling
Yeah.
that I have about doing this. And hey, I ran a restaurant service for 3 years called Nominate because we wanted to do that and help small minority-owned restaurants. That was great. We got to help them by putting money in their pockets. Now I get to work with 13 other creative people, creative shows that are trying to get their voice out to their community. I get to mentor. I get to sometimes just like, hey, you need a place to publish your thing. Let's go. Let's get it done. And now I get to do both sides. I get to do my show. I get to produce like 4 or 5 of the shows. And I get to sit here and people come to my house and I get to listen to these amazing stories. I get to hear people talk about their artistic process. I get to learn about photography, in the shadow of the Kodak Tower, that we all live under here in Rochester.
Yeah.
I get to learn about all of these things, and it all comes to me. What a luxury. I get to sit here and be confused about somebody talking about something I've never heard of before. And I get to ask the question, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
How fun is that?
Yeah.
And it just makes me so genuinely happy to have a real conversation or be involved and help people do this stuff. And the honest truth is, it's made me a better person and a happier person and a more connected person, which opens up the next doors of, hey, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And I'm still figuring that out. I don't know, but that's kind of the words behind how I feel about the experience about doing this whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing great. I mean, for those who are listening, you can't see, in this room there are at least 4, if I'm not missing more.
I only put up 4.
4. There's more, right?
I think I have 5.
5 awards from City Magazine, and it's not just from City. This is voted, right, of best local podcasts for Food About Town, and so your people are resonating with this, and so what I want to do, if you don't mind, is rewind a little bit. And so Food About Town, was that your very first podcast?
Yeah, first one I ever did. I learned a lot about how to communicate through listening to radio. At that point it was Guy Talk Radio, but there's something special about that conversation, right? Where you don't take yourself too seriously. You can roll with the punches. You're ready for anything. So I learned how to have conversations through listening to that. And I just decided to do my own. And yeah, Food About Town was the first one. I think they did the first one 2013. And, I'd say typical formats, an hour interview kind of style, but It can be on almost any topic, food and drink adjacent.
And now you have 13 podcasts on your network. Correct?
Yeah, 14 right now. I think might be 15 just launched. One with Rory Van Grohl and from Ugly Duck and Greg Benoit from the Irondequoit Public Library.
Cool.
Talking about their experience in the hardcore music community and how it's turned them into the adults they are today.
And without you, we wouldn't know we wouldn't know that side of them at all, right?
Yeah.
And so I think this is from
amazing.
My perspective, probably all of us, is that you're achieving exactly what you said you wanted to set out to achieve. You're highlighting great things. And it's amazing. I think we're all, and not just the 4 people in this room, I think people are inherently creative. And whether that creativity is just, picking out, your fun outfits, or playing games with your children or grandchildren, or writing a novel, if you tap into that, which I think you've done here, you can create something wonderful, and you require less validation the more happy you are. Not to say people still don't strive for it. I know I do, and I fight with myself about it. I think we all do, but you're, from our perspective, this is really awesome. Like, I feel very privileged to sit in this really amazing room talking to you about what you do for the community.
Well, and I love that too. Like, I love being able to bring people together and feel like they're having a special experience here. And like when I mentioned before, the being not afraid to not fail, but like, my co-founder will make fun of me for using the term because I end up using too much, but do the bit. If you say you're going to do the bit, Like,
commit to the bit.
right?
Yeah.
Show up, right? You're talking about improv, right?
Yep.
Right.
Improv works when you commit. If you're halfway in,
Yep.
people notice.
Exactly.
They know that you're uncomfortable. At some point, you have to say, I'm doing the bit.
Yeah.
I'm doing this thing now, and I'm going to do it all the way. And then I'm going to do it 10% more than that.
Yeah.
And then people buy it. Right? I mean, I love professional wrestling, right? I love watching it. And it's better than ever because they're committing to the stories. They're making it real. They're making us feel. Like, make somebody feel something. If I want people to walk in here and I want their first reaction to be, the fuck do you have this in your house for?
Yeah.
I want that reaction, right? And before I just had it on a small table, like, you know what? I want to bring the heat. Like, let them feel like they're coming into something special.
For sure.
They deserve to feel like they're coming into something special. And it's not about me feeling special. It's about me making them feel like they're doing something special.
Yeah. And when you came up to us at the table and like, I can't tell you, and I'm sure you've had this too.
Yeah.
I can tell you how many people come up to me or over LinkedIn or whatever, say, we want to promote your podcast. We want to be on your show. We want to like, and I'm like, I'm so turned off from it, but the genuineness that you express, like through like the passion that you have, I'm like, hey, you know, I wasn't worried with you. Like, I wasn't worried what, like how much this is going to cost me, how much, you know, like all this stuff, you know, but it definitely comes across when we meet you in person, and you can hear it when we listen to your shows, and like, you just really want to get the word out there. And in a way, you're like, even though you know sometimes nothing about what your guests are talking about,
Right.
you're the teacher.
Yeah, and I think of an analogy that I was talking to somebody who I don't see very much anymore, but, you know, love the guy, love his, you know, his wife I knew from college. I knew him from college, and they're truly great people. And they had come back, and, you know, I'm the same person as I was when they left, but I'm a different person. I'm an evolved version of who I was. And I was talking about all the things I was involved in. This is a few years ago, before, I think it was like 2019. And he asked a very honest question, right? The kind of question you don't ask to somebody you don't know really well.
Yeah.
And I think I was just remarking on how I was at somewhere and just talking to somebody and just like learning about them just because. It was random happenstance where I talked to somebody. And the honest question he had was, how do you care about what they're talking about? And because he's a very analytical guy like I am. And my honest reaction was, I think, and I won't say everybody because it's not everybody, but almost everybody has something they really care about.
Yeah.
And if I can get them to talk about the thing they really care about, then how could I not be interested?
Exactly.
Right.
That is the nail on the head is, you know, I said before that we're inherently creative creatures. I think we're also we're students. You know, a friend of mine many years ago, she's passed away. She was older. She was my friend's mother. And I'll never remember, I should ask my friend, but in her bathroom, she had this framed excerpt from a book, and it was Merlin the wizard talking to somebody, like a little kid or something. I don't know what book it's from. And he said, the kid was saying he was in despair, upset about something. He says, and Merlin says, when all else fails, learn something new. And every time I would go in that bathroom, I would learn something new. And you don't have to suddenly make it your life, but you can get really involved. For example, Nick and I talked to someone recently, Susan Kavanaugh, who she's into tech and women in tech and all this tech stuff. And it is so far removed from kind of my life and what I do, but yet it was so fascinating because she was so passionate and she genuinely was like, let me teach you this thing. And I'm like, all right, let me be a student. And I think that's a position you've put yourself in, is I'm going to be a student. You teach me.
Yeah, and I also love the challenge of knowing enough about enough things to have a legitimate conversation on almost any topic with anybody. And I don't need to know 90%. If I know 20% or 10%, where I can bring up something to show them that I'm ready. And it's part of respecting just everybody. I just love having that ability at this point to be able to, and it's not about the know-it-allism, it's about, I really love that challenge of being able to just absorb enough to have that 10% to show that I care. Right? Like I'm not an expert wine taster. I'm pretty good, but I know enough to start the conversation with a high-level trained sommelier where we can taste seriously and they can teach me something.
Yeah.
It's about respecting the people around you enough to know something, to say, hey, I want to be there. I want to be there, not just being blank. It's both. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, yeah, I will get thrown off base. I'll use an example on one of our shows, Behind the Studio Door, hosted by Molly and her partner Christian. It's really talking about artist process. And she was interviewing one of her very close friends who was talking about, movement and expression of feminine rage. And, that makes sense. It's not my practice. But then they were talking about evolutionary astrology. Those two words make sense to me separately. The combination of them makes no sense to me at all. And I was listening to this discussion and trying to absorb it. And she's sitting where Nick is, right across from me, the host, Molly. And she's watching me furiously type into my computer, like, all right, who's the expert in this field? What do they do? What are they talking about? And I'm listening and I'm searching because I want to ask the question. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the question is, but I want to know enough to ask a question or be able to formulate a question. And it took me 40 minutes into the episode where I wasn't talking at all, because in that show, I'm like a 10% producer on mic. I got to ask a question that it took me almost a minute to ask it. But I got to ask a question that was it was a layperson question. But I got to ask a question I think made the episode better. Because if you just accept everything at pure face value, you're missing the emotion sometimes. Because you just talk about, oh, this is how I go through the world, is through this. And it wasn't about pulling negative emotion out, but the question ended up being, yes, if that same thing I mentioned to you earlier, Jess, was if this makes you understand the world better, if this is how you experience the world, that's great. And my thing to her was that made me feel sad that structure was necessary to allow you to express your feminine rage in a way that's acceptable. That made me sad. And not about that it's good for you, the practice. But I never would have thought about that in that way unless I heard her talk about the practice. I never would have researched that. But I got to learn something new that day, and I got to have a real connection with somebody. Yeah. And if I run into her again, she's such a cool person. But also, I got to learn something and have a real conversation with somebody that day.
For sure. And we're talking about community, right? Building community. Mm-hmm. And that is what it is. It's connection, right? You're connecting with people that you wouldn't ordinarily connect with. And that is what makes our world go round. And right now our world is very divisive, right? Yeah. But you can still have meaningful connections with somebody that you might otherwise disagree with wholeheartedly on a very deep level. But I have found, even in like this paranormal space, people that I disagree with vehemently on many things, still can have a connection in this paranormal space and understanding that we don't understand everything. And once you get down into that, you can see how people tick, and you can see and form that connection of, I respect you on this level and I love you on this level. And I think that that's important. That's how we build community, because even though we're on opposite sides of something, I still can connect and relate with you on this thing, and maybe we'll find other things, but that's important because that's how we all build community and love each other and build things for the better, right?
Yeah.
Well, and
Absolutely.
I love that you grabbed those two things, because those are the two things I believe in strongest. Is we don't know everything. Like, hey, we learn all the time, right? Science evolves because we are learning more. We're getting new data. We're learning more all the time. We don't know everything. And that if you give it a real shot, you can connect with people. And yeah, at some point, I don't want to be around people I don't want to be around. I do want to be around positive people because I struggle being a positive person. And being around people who are trying to make things better makes me feel like it's okay to be positive.
Of course.
Makes it feel like it's okay to be positive. And not that I'm brutally negative, but I'm a brutal realist. And I live in that world, but being around people who are trying to do something good, being around people who are helping their communities that need the help, or getting the different, diverse voices out, I feel better. I feel like I can be more of a positive person. I can be a better husband to my wife. I can be a better member of the Rochester community because of the people I've surrounded myself with.
Yeah.
And it's not about me. It's about everybody making each other better together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, like, what I love, and even being a part of your interview style, what I love about your style is that you're able to, like, open a door for, the interviewee to kind of share their knowledge and stuff, but also you kind of meet them at their level. If they can't come through the door, then you're opening a window, and it might be just a crack, it might be wide open, or you're finding like you're just putting a hole through the house to kind of like get that question out there.
Sometimes.
And what I love about it is that, like, sometimes they are these, like, really, pie in the sky, like, questions and ideas that you're putting out there and getting them to talk about their craft, but also you're connecting with the listener on the other end that might have the most basic of questions and not know the answer to that. And it's just such a great balance that I've, like, felt all through this interview, first of all, but, like, but I've heard through some of your other shows.
Yeah, I want to make sure people feel like they're being taken care of.
Absolutely.
And I use that as it's a real statement of hospitality. Like, there's people who I adore in that industry, obviously, since I talk a lot about that. People who know how to take care of you. I want every guest to come in here and feel better than when they came in the door. Because people come in nervous, right? And when we do a panel show, I'll prime them all. I'll say, you're going to start off quiet. And then you're going to forget that you're doing a show. And by the end, I'm going to be lowering your levels. You're going to get louder. You're going to be talking to the person next to you. And you're going to feel like we've just had a great conversation. And almost every time, that's exactly what happens. One, yes, I am priming them to know that that's going to happen. Not as a psychological ploy, but it's priming them to be ready. One, because it would happen regardless. But two, because I've told them, then they feel more comfortable and the ramp is easier. And all of those moments where I get the chance to, hey, some guests aren't as voluminous talkers as others, then I put in a story. And it's to make them feel comfortable that they can tell a story. And it's all about the flow, because it's not my story I'm telling that day. I want them to tell their story. I'm happy to tell my story. I'll talk forever. But during those, yeah, I do talk more in some and less in others. But that's all like in aid of the guest that day. And sometimes it's, hey, I'm setting that I know how to talk technical about this food thing, so they feel comfortable going into the weeds. It was on our coffee show, Dialed In, formerly Level Up. We were interviewing a new coffee shop called Elvio's. It's going to be opening down the street from here on Empire. Portuguese themed and roasted by our friend.
I heard of this too, yeah.
Yeah, so Wade Reed, who's one of the hosts of Dialed In, head roaster for Aporia, part of AM/FM Coffee. So he's roasting for them as well, and we got to have a wide-ranging conversation. And the person who's talking most was Elvio. He's a traveling, high-level touring musician. He tours with Daughtry.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
So he's a high-end touring musician. His brother is a super trained chef. Worked in New York at high-end places, Jean-Georges, and worked at Michelin star restaurants. And he's not the liveliest guy. He can be. He's certainly put it on, but the other guy's used to grabbing the attention.
Right.
So as soon as I learned he was trained, I'm like, oh, you worked for Jean-Georges von Liechtenstein. Like, how did you enjoy doing the high-end European presentation?
Yeah.
What kind of things did you enjoy about that? Did you like the prep? Did you like this? And it's not about just showing the acumen. It's about opening up that door for him now to talk about his passions.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's those little moments, right? I love that.
Yeah.
I really deeply appreciate that you notice that, because it's so on purpose. And the idea is you want it to not feel like it's on purpose.
Well, it comes across really naturally.
Yeah.
And honestly, we might not leave. So like that might be, you feel very comfortable.
Yeah.
Here,
Well, yeah,
surrounded
you're
by
a
booze.
genuine person, which is what aids in all of that, right? Because people
Absolutely.
can see through that, even if people aren't people, you're not a people person. You will still get a gut feeling, right?
Yeah.
Of like, I don't feel like this person's being genuine, like you said, Nick. I just, I feel comfortable, genuine, and people sense that, and people know if you have their best interests at heart.
Yeah. And there's nooks all over this house that you might just be comfortable in without having to interact with anyone. So there's lots of options for us to stay, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I was gonna say
There's a lot of alcohol right there.
Well,
Yeah.
that's also what I said. We're surrounded by booze.
I'm gonna say I'll get my wife down, and then everybody likes her more than me, and rightfully so. She's way nicer than me. She's way more creative than me. But that's also made me a better person, right? Like, I can be harsh and analytical at times, and having somebody who is more emotional and attuned to that side of the world. And now I get to go to furry conventions all over the country.
Oh my gosh.
And I know
it's
about that
amazing.
community now. And I never would have gone to one of those. And I don't participate that much, but I get to be around all these people trying to be their best.
Mm-hmm.
They might be awkward. They might be trying to figure out themselves, but they're trying so hard to feel comfortable and to be their best person. How can I not be inspired by that? How can I not feel like I'm involved? And I have a furry character that's designed after me. I don't want that.
Oh my gosh.
But it's
a
a great character.
That's
And it was
Does the
well
character
designed.
have a name, or is it just
It's just my name.
Chris?
Yeah, it's just Stromy. Yeah, my nickname. But yeah,
That's awesome.
but being open to, hey, I go to those things now, and hey, I have people I recognize at them now,
Right.
and they know me.
Right.
But it's just about that. It's an honest, real connection. I don't who cares? Like, you having a good time? Are you hurting anybody?
That's
No.
exactly it. Reserve. People have such strong opinions or judgment, and what is wrong with somebody just wanting to be happy?
Yeah.
What is wrong with somebody just practicing what they want to practice, to do what they want to do? It's not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
I don't understand. However, that's when it gets important to talk to those people who have those judgments.
Yeah.
Because you can open their eyes in a different way of like, that person, I connected with them on a personal level. And then it starts to be like, oh, not all of them are, worth, judging. And then there's a little crack, right? Like just that little crack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the real thing, right? Is I think there are people who are bad actors. I think there are people who are genuinely not doing good things. But
Agree.
these little monsters who are dressing up in costumes and having a great time, if you go and you see the smiles on their faces,
Right.
How do you think that's a bad thing? I love, I genuinely call them monsters when like I'm with the dealers because my wife sells at them. So I'm around mostly her friends who sell, and I hear her chatting or playing a game with them. I'm like, hi monsters, how you doing? I just walk away because they also know me now.
Yeah.
And they made a meme about me that says, I'm remarkably pleasant given the situation. And it's a polar bear just soaked and looking weird. And I love that they see me too. Right? And that makes me feel good that I'm it's not my community, but they're part of my life.
Yeah.
And that if other people are seeing that I'm trying and that I really care about doing a good job with what I'm doing, that means I think I've done the bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done the bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because like years ago, I worked at another college, and we had hired a student to be in the mascot outfit because we were going to take a whole bunch of different photos of this mascot, and they didn't show. So who got to go in the mascot outfit? Me. So I was Blaze the Dragon, right?
Oh my gosh.
So the whole photo shoot, but about halfway through, we're going all these different places all across campus. I was playing with the dog. I was doing all sorts of different things. And I realized I'm smiling, like, for every photo. Like, so speaking of the furries, they can't see your face, right? So I'm like, hey guys, I'm smiling.
But they saw it.
Yeah.
They saw that you were smiling and they couldn't see your mouth.
Right.
The tone that you were practicing was seen.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What are we doing with podcasting, right?
Right.
It's tone.
Yeah.
If you get the tone out, right? If people feel your intention, they can't see your smile, but they knew you were smiling. You could tell you were smiling from the pictures, and they couldn't see your mouth.
Yeah.
What are we doing? We're doing theater of the mind, but it's all about
Hive mind.
feel.
Just thinking that too. Like, we're in the same level.
Right. That's what we're doing. But that's storytelling and writing.
Yeah.
You have to make them feel with the words.
And I think we're such, again, I'm not sure if I said this off air or 40 minutes ago, but we're all little kids who want to be told a story, but we want to tell, when you have little kids, and mine are not little, but they're like, I gotta tell you, and there was this puppy, and then the kid on the playground pushed me down, and then I didn't cry, and we're from very early, we're desperate to share experience. And so I think that's one of the appeals of podcasting in general. I think of the podcasts that I really like outside of these local ones, like the bigger national ones or whatever. And I think about them, and it's because I feel like I'm in the room, or that they're not just reading the story. They're telling me a story. I'm in the car and I'm like, wow, that story, or that crime, or that like joke those two people told each other, they're telling it to me. And it can be a really safe space for a lot of people who don't have personal connection. It could feel really friendly when you're struggling. So I think there's people some people just like, oh, it's just a podcast. It's just, a bunch of people talking. I'm like, yeah, it's a bunch of people talking, because that's what we want. It's what we need. Mm-hmm. We're all trying to just be heard.
Well, speaking of being heard, let's get the plugs out so people can listen to all of our shows.
Yeah.
People that are hearing some of our voices for the first time. Let's get plugs out. Let's go from start to finish.
Start to finish. Well, you can definitely hear our shows, at thatsoundsterrific.com, or thatsoundsterrifying.com is probably the easiest way to find us.
Sure. And of course, on all of your favorite podcasting.
Yes.
Where you get your podcasts free. All of them, Spotify, Apple, whatever. Just Google us.
Yeah.
And then tell people where they can find 585 Magazine, how they can subscribe so they get it whenever it comes out.
Thank you. 585mag.com. It is it's not the only magazine in the area, but it's the only regional glossy, and we cover everything, mostly lifestyle and arts, and you can pick it up at most Wegmans in the area, Barnes & Nobles, Tops, and of course, if you go to 585mag.com, you can subscribe right there. I think a yearly subscription, I'm not going to say the price because I'm going to be wrong, but it's very it's
extremely affordable.
It's it's much more affordable than going to buy one at the store.
Yeah.
So subscribe, support local print, please. because
Yeah.
all the other, city, all of us, we're all know each other. We're all friendly and trying to work together. Read them all. Go by city. Go by 585. So you don't have to buy city. It's free. But read, print, keep us going, guys.
Yeah, support the things you believe in, right? I mean,
Sure.
if you believe in the written word, you believe in people who are caring and trying to do something good, support the things directly. For what we do, you can go to lunchador.org to check out all of the shows on the Lunchador Podcast Network. As I mentioned earlier, we have somewhere in the range of 14 or 15 shows right now. My show, Food About Town's been going on for a long time. You can catch us wherever you get your podcasts, and soon you're going to see more of our full videos for episodes up on YouTube as well. More clips on TikTok, more reels on the Instagram. Basically, anywhere you get content, you will find the Lunchador Podcast Network.
Nice.
Well, thanks everybody for coming over to the studio. Really
loved it.
appreciate your time. This was a delight.
This
Thank
is so
you.
fun.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Yeah, thanks
for
for having us.
hosting us and doing all of the things that you do.
All right. See everybody soon.